It's just after 10 a.m. on the 13th of May, and that means it's late autumn here in Hawke's Bay. And although we had a lot of rain yesterday all over the country, today the sky is virtually cloudless, and so it's going to be a beautiful day. It's slightly cool, but it's not cold. And I've come out to a local river to just walk and do some fishing for today, and to have a bit of a scout around for a good campsite. So this river is out behind Napier, the city I live in. It's one of 4 rivers which flow over or along the edge of the Heritonga Plains out to the sea by where Napier is on the coast. This river is called the Tutaekuri, which is a Maori name, and it's got kind of a humorous history because Tutaekuri is made up of 2 root words. Kuri means dog and tutai means shit. And it's said that the Maori who built a fortification sort of at where this river begins to flow in behind the city, there's a hill there called Otatra, and they built Otatra Pa there. And when they first moved into the region, apparently they were hungry and there was no food for them to eat immediately, but they decided on this Pa site, so they killed a couple of their dogs and washed the meat and the guts in the river. And as the undigested food from the intestines flowed down the river, they decided to call the river Tutaekuri, dog shit river. So that's kind of typical of Maori sense of humour, I think. So this river flows from the coast where I live. It flows down to the coast where I live, but it goes right back up into the mountains between the Ruahine and the Kaweka ranges roughly. So you can see what it's like here, you know, close to the coast and down on the flat. So just up behind me here, you can't see it, but I think we'll probably be able to see it when I cross over the river if I find somewhere to cross. There's a small bridge here, and on the other side of the bridge is a very well-known winery from here called Sacred Hill. So that gives a rough idea about where I am, and for anybody who knows the area. And something about this region you can't tell from here when you look back down the river, but all the banks of the river down here now are planted out in grapevines basically, because this entire valley all the way into town is an old riverbed, so it has perfect soil conditions, free draining soil for growing grapes on. And so there are a number of wineries, big important wineries out here. Now this all used to be sheep farming land and some fruit, apples, pears and things. There are still apples out here, but most of the other fruit's gone and being replaced by grapevines now. So I'm just going to have a quick look around and try and find somewhere to cross. I think it might be shallow enough up behind here. I've got my gumboots on, and get onto the other bank somehow. So I'm just going to have a look up and down the bank for somewhere to cross. So that water is icy cold. We've had a bit of snow in the ranges over the last couple of weeks, the first snowfalls of the year. So some of that is snow melt. And it's a little bit deep in Swift, and I've got a lot of expensive camera gear on my back. So I'm going to find a nice peaceful spot to sit down and have a brew, get my fishing kit together, and see if there's still any fish in this river this far down because of the intensive agriculture here, because of the grape industry. I suspect that there are a lot less fish at this end of the river than there used to be when I was younger. I actually haven't been out here to this spot for many years, and it's been quite a bit upgraded by Department of Conservation. They've put picnic tables and signage everywhere about the area, like tourist information. Even though it's not really remote out here, but not a lot of people would come here. One of the other reasons why I wanted to come out here today is one of my mates is also a keen hiker and bush camper. We're looking at doing, he lives in the South Island, which is quite distant from where I am, about 1,500 miles away. End of the year we're sort of looking to do some hiking together for 2 or 3 days to camp. So one of the things I've looked at, considered, is that we might do a canoe trip down one of the rivers here. I've canoed the river that's furthest south here in the bay, which is the Tutaekuri. I canoed it when I was younger, and so I have an idea of what these rivers are like to canoe. And it all has to do, because they're not really big rivers, if you're going to canoe them, you've got to catch it at a time of the year where the water level's high enough. Otherwise you end up having to portage all the time with a lot of heavy gear. So I'm just about to sort of check out the possibility of renting an open top light Canadian canoe here, or two, and then see how far back up this river we can put in, and then how many days it will take us to canoe from where we put in. So in the process of working all that out now. Most of the trees that we see around here are all exotic, like they're not native at all. And because these rivers flood a lot, the general practice in this country is to plant willow all along the banks, largely because it grows real fast and grows without the slightest amount of encouragement. And so most of the rivers in this country, when the farmland on each side of the river is pretty clear, you can tell where a river is from a distance because you can see the lines of willow everywhere. So in behind there, I think there are a few natives in there somewhere. That's probably the back of somebody's farming property. But you can also see there's some Douglas fir there, and back in the distance here you can see there is actually a pine forest back here. It's all Pinus radiata. That's not native either. It's all been brought in here for the timber industry, largely pulp for paper and for the building and construction industry. most buildings here are wooden based. We have even, you know, like public buildings, there are very few that are like built from stone, and most of the wood that's used is Pinus radiata. It grows like a weed here. There's a little backflush of water off the river here that's filled up this area like a little pond, and that's the biggest mess of watercress and the tallest watercress I think I've ever seen, and it's in flower at the moment, so it looks kind of cool. And that water is crystal clear. So I think I'm gonna sit right here for the day, fish off this little shingle bar, and there's a nice patch of flat ground in amongst those trees there where I can sit up and have a brew. Really good camping spot. The water here is good. The river's right there. Completely stealth in here. There's a little bit of a track running along the other side of that stop bank there, but I bet it doesn't get used very often. Plenty of dead wood. And all that willow strong enough easily to hang a hammock. I've actually bought my hammock today, so I think I might just set it up for the hell of it and laze here for the afternoon. Sandbars to make a fire on. This is an excellent place to camp. Time for a brew. So inside my cook kit, that's the gas head for my gas cooker. That's a little container it goes in. Also got my soya squeeze with a 500ml bag. because although this water looks perfectly clean and crisp here, the chances are it's not good to drink because of all the agriculture that goes on around here. So it really needs to be filtered and boiled. In my fire lighting kit, I've got a ferro rod, a Bic lighter, a candle, and some matches and a striker. So, you know, I always like to have at least 3 ways to light a fire. And today I'm not mucking around. That gas lighter is actually not easy to light with the ferro rod, so I don't bother. Plus, I'm sitting it on my little tarp here, so I don't want ferro rod burn marks all through the tarp. So this lid for the pot makes a really good lid for drinking tea out of. I think that's 350 mils and the pot is 850 mils. That's raw sugar. I don't use white sugar. And I always bring UHF milk. This is long life milk. You know, this stuff lasts for about a year and just sitting on the shelf in a container. It doesn't have to go into a fridge or anything like that. And so it's perfect, like these little 250ml containers are just perfect for hiking, you know, a night out, overnight camp, or a day camp like today. If you've never tried UHF milk, it tastes just like every other milk. There's nothing strange. It's not like, it's much preferable in my opinion to powdered milk, which has a weird flavour to it.
Too much of a good thing will make you numb. You'll always go crazy. You'll make her feel dumb. Too much of a good thing can make you lose your sight. You'll wake up in the morning, dark as night. good thing. Oh Lordy, my. Well, I can't remember the last time I tried. Too much of a good thing will tear you down. You started as a tower, you're rubble now. Too much, not enough, not enough, too much, too much.
That spiky looking tree up there, that's a native. It's called, by a European name is a cabbage tree. And the Maori used to use it as a staple source of carbohydrate. So you can often tell where old Maori settlements were because they cultivated the tree, planted lots of them around, or moved into an area where there were a lot of them. At the base of the, where all the leaves come together, there's a hard white core, which is like cabbage, which is why it's called a cabbage tree, but it's high in carbohydrate. That's a native flax as well. There's a few native trees in there. Fantail. They eat a lot of small insects that are exposed when you're walking along with them turning the soil over, and they're not very scared of people. You can see that one there, how close it is. Another sort of good area for camping in behind there, even though they've obviously just ploughed through this road here recently. This is not very old by the looks of it. I bet you there's not much traffic coming down here. this is pretty typical of lowland riverbanks in New Zealand. Right, just about anywhere you go here in the North or the South Island, it looks just like this. A lot of shingle in the riverbeds with a little stream running down the middle of it, a little river. And willows everywhere. And you can see, as far as wild edibles are concerned, if you're looking closely at the undergrowth, like this is all grass. There are almost no other kinds of plant in among these trees, and most of them are inedible weeds where you do find them. Or poisonous weeds like deadly nightshade. So if you were going to try and live off the land in the backcountry in New Zealand without eating too much meat, just collecting wild edibles, you'd have to be really well practiced at spotting exotic plants that have been brought in here. There's a nice bit of a fern springing up there. It's the only fern I've seen yet. Usually everywhere in the undergrowth in the bush in New Zealand you see ferns everywhere. But of course on cultivated land like this is not really wild land. At one stage this has all been cleared and then it's been planted in these trees. Cultivated land, there's almost no natives. So these native trees that are up and behind here, these have been replanted themselves at one time, or they've been left over because this is like a bank going up a small hill, and nobody's bothered stripping down all the native plants, and they've just stayed there. This is another native New Zealand plant. It's commonly called cutty grass because it's very sharp, and the edges of those leaves have barbs on them, very fine barbs. And the native Maori name for it is toi. In the summer they grow a long stem with like a big white fluffy brush on the end. Those brushes are excellent tinder, and so's the dead leaf at the base of the toi bush. That stuff catches fire real easy because it's just like paper. You might say in a way it's like New Zealand's version of birch bark. hell on the bottom. So that actually is the Tutaekuri back that way. And this is one of its tributaries here.